Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rule the Roost podcast. Sorry if you thought there might not be a podcast because I'd be kind of paying my respects and everything. I'm here. I'm an awful person. I'll take it on the chin. Even though there has been no football because of the events of last week. So it's going to make it probably hard to do a Tottenham podcast. Oh no, it won't. Because I've got on the show today Mr. Hotspur Memories himself, Kyle Wetton. Welcome back to the show, mate. How are you getting on?
Very good, thank you. Very good, yeah.
Did you enjoy my awkward tiptoeing around, not wanting to make a kind of bad or insensitive joke about last week, but also kind of doing that? Do you think
Absolutely.
Did I navigate that one all right, do you think?
I think you did well. Yeah, I mean, one cancelled podcast equals one respect, right? Something like that. So I've just gone there. So
any publicity is good publicity, mate. Even if it is
right.
flag shaggers getting angry at me. I haven't actually said anything bad. I've not said anything bad the entire time, and I don't feel a lot of bad things. I think people of all opinions on the matter should be allowed to just feel, think, and process what they want to about it. We don't need to police one another's views and stuff on something like this. Just let people feel what they need to feel. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter.
I couldn't agree more. Let people be, or however they want to, unless it's like really aggressive. Then I'm kind of a bit like,
then kind of turn it in a bit, innit? No football's shite though, isn't it? At the moment.
Absolutely. I didn't really know what to do the weekend.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, what did you actually get up to?
Well, it turns out, I said I didn't know what to actually do. It turns out I had to just fill my time with like cram in as much family-based activities as we possibly could without the fear of lingering of Tottenham in the background, which was great. It was kind of good actually,
Liberating.
I didn't have that. Yeah, like went to a farm, petting zoo and playgrounds and stuff, and was like, and at no point was I thinking, gonna have to leave here about 4:00 to make sure we get back in time, and traffic's looking a little bit bad on the M25, so none of that. Didn't have any of that this week. It was like an international weekend almost.
Any interesting creatures at the petting zoo? That's kind of what I'm choosing to focus in on, or is it standard fodder?
You got your standard, come on, you got your gigantic pigs, and your there were a few llamas there, to be fair, but kids did a little bit of feeding, and then straight off, and there's a playground over there, straight to that, bang, there you go, that's your next 2 hours sorted. So knacker them out, sleep in the car and home. Lovely.
Nice. You get to sit down, have a coffee, just keep an eye on them.
Yeah,
jobs are good.
I thought it was going to be that, but like there were a few of us that went, and there was this like tractor thing where they raced down on these tractors, and it turned out that like my natural sort of inclination was to be like, there's something gonna happen here. so I was on watch basically. I was like the night's watch of the children on this thing. So yeah,
anxiety's a hoot, isn't it? It's good fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a ramp at the end. I'm definitely sure Ada's gonna break her neck on this. Well, better have a look. So
do you think it's, petting zoos aside, mate, petting zoos and anxiety aside, how are you feeling that we skipped City? Because do you think it's a good thing? Maybe, in a way, or would you have rather have just gotten it out of the way? And where actually the fuck does that fit in now as well, the game?
Absolutely. I am so conflicted when it comes to that game being postponed, because part of me is like, yes, I'm actually all right. I would like to be playing them when we're playing well, and I have a really good account of ourselves. But the counter argument to that, the flip side that's been going around in my head, is like, we always seem to turn up against them when we've been playing shite, or like no one expects us to do anything. So I suppose outside of Spurs, those that are outside of Spurs and outside of our sort of like, our walls, like I reckon the country would be looking at that 5:30 kickoff game going, I fancy, Spurs could cause an upset here because they're third in the league. They don't watch us. They haven't watched what we've watched every week, and they'll be like, yeah, well, if anyone's going to test City here, it's Tottenham. And from I think the feeling inside the Spurs walls, well, not inside the actual itself, the team have probably been quite confident, but like I reckon there probably was a sense and a feeling going into the game that like we're not actually playing great at the minute. And yes, I know we're defending really well, but that's because of the way we're playing, I guess, right? And the way that we're set up. And they've got Haaland, which is like cheat mode at the moment. Him and De Bruyne, right?
Yeah, it might be nice to kind of bump into them when he's maybe in a bit of an off patch, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of feel maybe that is a bit of maybe it is a bit of a blessing because like like when I've gone through past games against them in my head and whatnot, right? Like let's take last season for example. Like we go up there, turn them over 3-2. We just lost at Burnley in the midweek, and everyone was writing us off. The Champions League quarterfinals, we were massive underdogs going into that. Everyone was just expecting City to beat us over two legs. Plucky old Tottenham turn up and knock them out. Whereas I get this sense from around football, other football fans that it'd be like this was going to be real. This was going to be a real test for City that weekend, and that Tottenham were coming up third in the league and could get like some sort of result there. And I kind of feel the Tottenham in me feels that like when the rest of the world is watching and is expecting us to do this sort of thing and turn up, I mean, then we kind of don't. But then again, saying that under Conte, like he's trying to stamp out that, I dare I say it, Spursiness out of us, and out of the team.
I do think we're a bit of a different beast under him, right? I think that tail end of last season was pretty. It was almost kind of peak Pochettino-ish in its resolve, in so much as just our determination to get that over the line. I kind of felt that after the Brighton game last year, I was like, that's it, it's done. Arsenal have got top four. We're going to have to suffer the St. Tottenham's Day memes and all that type of stuff all summer. But we still just kind of went at it. And that the 3-0 at home, going into that, I really feel that like maybe a Mourinho Tottenham, for example, might have lost that one to Arsenal. Might have kind of the occasion might have gotten the better of them. But I don't know. It really feels like we've kind of turned a bit of a corner in that instance. And with City, it's really hard to know how good or not they are, because Haaland is like, look, let's just talk about Haaland, right? Because I was very kind of, I went on the Blue Moon podcast the other day, big City podcast run by a lad called David Mooney, who's been on here before, and he kind of, one of his first questions to me was basically, how are you feeling about having to play Haaland, kind of thing. I was just explaining to him that because you can imagine it must be, imagine how like mad it must be having kind of him. It's like, when you used to play like Doom back in the day with like what was the old, was it IDDQD, the old cheat? Did you ever used to play Doom?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
well, a little
was
bit
that
of
God
Doom,
mode?
or like, or was it like, is it like Odd Job on GoldenEye?
Yeah, exactly.
There's
the kind of the cheat code, right? And it's, as you said, the cheat code already. And I can imagine, like, in a weird side, I get it, right? Whatever, they've been assembled through oil money and all this type of thing, but people are still going to enjoy watching their team play football. You've got the team you've got, kind of thing. And I dare say, if we had the oil money and stuff behind us, and we were signing players like Mbappe, we'd still be kind of pretty buzzing about it on a certain level.
How did you not respond to that question? Like, first of all, if he'd have said to me, like, how do you feel about facing Haaland? I'd have been like, no, fuck you. How do you feel about
facing Harry Kane?
How do you feel about Harry Kane, mate? Jesus Christ, like, get off your ivory tower, you bloody high horse, whatever. Anyway, sorry.
Well, my point was more kind of like, well, because I'd seen how Sancho came over. I know it makes you sound like a gammon for saying it, but I don't particularly rate the Bundesliga. I watched Stuttgart against Bayern this weekend as well. Well, part of it, the first half of it, I just couldn't stand it. Like I maintain, if Bayern Munich were in the Premier League, they'd probably be kind of Tottenham Arsenal level, maybe Chelsea level now. but I don't think they'd be running away with it like Manchester City do. And the league, it just seems kind of pointless to me. I don't really get it. I don't. Maybe there's the coaching and such on show is great. There obviously there's a farm of great managers there that kind of get their training wheels, shall we say, in the Bundesliga and then come over to the Premier League. Jurgen Klopp, Thomas Tuchel, hopefully Julian Nagelsmann at Tottenham after Conte's gone. But it's another story. But I was thinking quite openly. I thought Haaland was going to come over because of the strength of the team that he's in, and obviously the fact that he's clearly a talented striker. But I kind of thought the Premier League's it's a different beast, though. Coming over here, right, and trying to sort of replicate those numbers that we've seen in the Bundesliga. I just thought he's just not going to do it. Maybe he'll be kind of a sort of
shit.
Dannying. No, not even shit. Just like good for 15 Premier League goals. That kind of level where it's like, everyone was sort of saying before, he's going to get 50, 60. He's going to break Alan Shearer's record in his first season, that sort of thing. I just thought, no, he'll get 15 goals, maybe 25 goals in all competitions. But he's just come out like...
Now it's like 15 to 25 tap-ins.
I mean, well, this is it, right? Because we saw him in the first game against West Ham. He sort of scored a Haaland goal where he got the ball in his stride and just kind of pelted forwards and just sort of stroked it with that supreme power that he has into the back of the net. But as you say there, most of his goals have been tap-ins. And I was talking to them about this on the pod, but my point was really like, we kind of get that shit about Harry Kane forever, right? But at the end of the day, they're in the right position to score those goals. I'm not sort of trying to dig him out just because he's at Arsenal now, but Gabriel Jesus was at Manchester City for years and he wasn't scoring the amount of goals that Haaland is already, with the sort of service. They were both getting incredible service. Jesus was there when David Silva was there, for fuck's sake. It's pretty mad. So, well, he's obviously good, right? Like, do you rate him? What's his ceiling? How many goals is he going to score this year? Like, how the fuck do you stop him?
Yeah, I do really rate him. I think he's, there's a Liverpool fan at work, and they're like the most biased Liverpool fan you could ever meet, and he's like, oh, Diaz will do better than him. Diaz will do better than him. I'm like, no way, man. And then like he's scoring all these goals, and then it's suddenly like, oh yeah, but it's going to dry up soon because it's just dropping to him in the box, and he's there to tap in. I'm like, no, there's an art. There is an art in what Haaland does. He knows, he sort of like reads situations in attacks and then positions himself to be that sort of follow up or for the right cross or be that end product. He is the real deal. He's a fantastic striker. He's got everything: pace, size, finishing. I just would have liked to have seen. I would like to see him face up against our defense, and because I'm really intrigued in like, the way that we've been setting up all season is denying all space within the box. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole back five crunching together, and then like the two sitting with Højbjerg and Bentancur sat in front of them, just saying, "Hey, you are not getting a shot away inside this box," which is where he's been thriving. So that would have been interesting. I'm also interested in Romero smashing him up in the air in the first 5-10 minutes, because he seems to target one player a game, and you just know it would have been him. And then also off the back of that, how Haaland A probably reacts to that, but B, do you then see Haaland all game trying to tack on the end of Ben Davies, for example, like someone who's like half his size, or like Longley, and just really target that area in us, especially if we've got someone like Perisic bombing on down the left-hand side, or Sessegnon, and trying to attack that sort of side of the pitch. I thought the game would have been, from that perspective, I think it would have been a really interesting tactical battle. And also like the Conte side of it, like, would Conte specifically set up and try defensive drills in order to stop those sort of, moves that Haaland's making, or runs, or the City build up and the City play? Obviously we've had some success against possession-based teams like City with Conte, and I just found that would have been a really interesting, intriguing thing to see. And I think providing Haaland, everyone's fit, and I had a look at that sort of screenshot of like game weeks and stuff and what's coming up when in the calendar. I think that was circling around Twitter. And I just can't help but feel that this game will now take place in either March or April. So quite late on in the season, because that seemed to be where the midweek breaks were. And to see if we're flying at that point and they're flying and Haaland's still scoring and Harry Kane's obviously going to be HK 35, right?
Yeah.
Then like that's set up for a huge match, and
Sky
even more exciting,
that, aren't they?
That's
the thing.
They will be rubbing, and who knows? Hey, if we we keep going the way we're going, I'm not saying touch wood and everything. Like, could it be an early title 6-pointer sort of thing? If we are the real deal, so Sky will be over the moon if that gets moved to like shades of Champions League qualification, Harry Redknapp 20 for the when Crouchy in front of the away fans, sort of midweek jobby at the Etihad. We won't talk about the following year because that was the year it went wrong and that was billed as that sort of same game, but whatever. So that, one of the and or shades of the North London derby last season. Huge game rearranged midweek. So it's going to come. The Haaland versus Romero battle is going to come. It's just not happened this weekend.
It's quite interesting. It's quite favourable. Just having a look at our final sort of 8 fixtures. Bournemouth, because we've got the reverse City fixtures in February, 4th of February. Then after that, we kind of sort of it's up and down. We've got Chelsea in there. But I mean, that second half of the season for us, if we are trying to do something big, it's not terrible. Kind of it falls pretty nicely for us.
Yeah.
We usually, our end of season's pretty grisly, but I mean, we got Liverpool away, we got Anfield on the 29th of April. Other than that, Bournemouth at home, Newcastle away, United at White Hart Lane. So, United's often a bit of a dodgy one for us, but still. Then Liverpool away, but then it's final 4 fixtures, Palace at home, Villa away, Brentford at home, Leeds away, final game of the season. It's going to be an interesting one. And like you say, Sky Sports are going to be rubbing their hands together with Glee. But I'm not sure which side of the fence I fall on with it. I was quite interested to see actually how good Spurs are or not right now. Because I think the main thing I've taken, the Marseille game doesn't change this at all, is that I'm not entirely certain if Spurs are actually really good or kind of getting lucky. And I mean, there is that sort of, there's that old saying, isn't there? The harder I try, the luckier I get kind of thing. So it could just be a case of that. But Charlie Eccleshare on the View from the Lane podcast the other day was making the point that this might be one of those things that we just retrospectively look back on and be like, Conte changed the game again kind of thing, in that we've been so conditioned over the past few years by Liverpool and City's dominance, really, to view this kind of whatever they call it, was it JDP football, the ultra kind of possession based, have the ball at all times style football, that when you kind of watch Spurs over the past few games, we don't have much of the ball at all, and that lends itself to the kind of the discourse that Spurs aren't in control of games, that we're being completely dominated. But one instance where I really disagreed with this, because I saw quite a few of the kind of conversations at the back of the Marseille game that were basically saying Spurs got dominated, Marseille dominated the game, but Spurs kind of held out, stuck to their game plan and got there. But I didn't see it that way at all. I just saw Marseille have a lot of pretty meaningless possession, not really do anything with it, try their hardest. And we looked relatively comfortable for most of the game. And when I think about most games this season, and it sounds crazy to say because we conceded 2 goals, but I think even Chelsea away, Stamford Bridge, we were pretty comfortable for large parts of the game. We restricted Chelsea's opportunities that they created, and with the attack that we have, knowing that we can be so ruthless with those teams. I'm not saying it's pretty to watch. I'm not saying I love it. I'm not saying I think it doesn't fill me with anxiety. See Tottenham surrender as much possession that they do in each game, but maybe we are just really, really good. Maybe we are just letting other teams kind of punch themselves out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hit them, because when you do have players like Richarlison, Son, although he's not really turned up this year so far, Harry Kane, Kulusevski, even somebody like Lucas Moura that can hurt other teams. Why do we need to kind of really, especially in a season this busy, to exert as much energy as we need to, pressing doggedly in every single game, every single fixture?
Yeah, that's one thing I kind of wanted to touch on, actually, because I'm thinking back to that run-in last season, and I don't remember. Unless they say you forget all of the painful things about bringing up a child, right? They say like you kind of shut everything out, like and you forget about all the horrible things when you're raising a child at the very beginning and whatnot, and all the scary things that you have to go through and everything, and you push that out, and you just think of it as this rosy, wonderful time or whatever, and that's just like in human nature. And I think back to and to liken that to Spurs, I think back to our run-in and our like you say, post Brighton, whatever, or even after sort of like, I think after from the Leeds game or whatever, right, when we walloped them, and I just remember us, and especially I just remember us like battering teams last season. Then that sort of last third of the season. And I don't remember us really setting up like this and being like inviting everyone on and sort of inviting all of this pressure. Maybe the Villa game, actually. I remember like the first half of that. I remember we away at Villa and we were 1-0 up, and that whole first half, I think they pretty much pumped us, and Lloris pulled off a hell of a load of saves. And then with second half, we just came out and rolled them over. But like then, so I've kind of been, I've in the background, I've kind of been thinking, like, is this, knowing how fucking insane the schedule is this an actual tactic and ploy that Conte is saying? Is like, I want us to set up this way, and this sort of reserved football and surrendering possession and hitting teams on the counter, because we've got 4 players that can play up front that are like incredible on the counter and can cut through teams like a knife through butter, cliche, drop it in. And like, is it this whole sort of tactic to sort of reserve energy and keep miles in the tank, so that post World Cup or whatever, because we've got a fair few players going to the World Cup, like post World Cup, they've still got like miles in the legs, if you know what I mean, and like can go again, if you know what I mean, rather than like going heavy metal football Klopp style and then burning out by January, February. Is he setting up this way to play the long game?
Well, this is hard to know, isn't it? And this is really what I think probably out of any of our managers of the past few years, I think I've struggled the most to really kind of get a grasp on what we're doing, how, in terms of how intentional it is, for the reasons that you've highlighted there, and how much of it is the players, or because we've noticed on occasion that, I mean, the Aston Villa game last season is a perfect example of this, but I'm pretty sure we've seen similar this year when, for the most part, we seem to just absorb in the first half, let the other team kind of try and knock on the door, if you like, and then in the second half kind of come out at it. Or again, like we saw against Chelsea, whenever we conceded against Chelsea, it's suddenly like, right, we need to get a goal, and we sort of snapped into action, into a more proactive kind of stance. But it's like, is this something that's been coached into us, or is this just the players naturally responding to events that are happening on the pitch? I mean, personally, I feel really that the results and, well, mainly just the results, to be honest. I was going to see the manner of them, and maybe that does still apply. Just the fact that we're undefeated so far this season.
Yeah.
We've conceded, I think, 5 goals. Um,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
winning. We're winning more games than, it's not like we're just getting a load of draws or anything like that. We're winning games.
Yeah.
It's hard to not see it as something that's deliberate at this point in time, especially when you don't want to get too drunk on the reputation of somebody like Conte, but at the end of the day, he's one of the so-called best managers on the face of the planet for a reason, right? Because he makes teams good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of like, I mean, I'm thinking about like, I think last time I came on, we had like we were talking about wanting to sign a 10 for those games where like we're playing teams that want to sit behind the ball and soak us up, if you know what I mean, and then hit us on the break. And now it's kind of I kind of feel like there's that we're sort of trying to coerce those teams out, right? And we're giving them the ball and being like, right, okay, well, here you go. They think they can express themselves a little bit more once they're, in fact, they're on like 55% possession or something like that, and then 1, 2, 3 passes, we're straight through them, and then there's a goal. And yeah, it kind of feels like we're changing. We have it does feel like a deliberate tactic because it is. We're trying to find way. It's a different way of breaking those teams down, if you know what I mean. But man, it is not great for my anxiety levels. I mean, I watched that Marseille game. I was watching that, and that first half, I was getting so frustrated. And it wasn't because I wasn't getting really frustrated at like. I wasn't getting as frustrated by the way that we were playing, and not like and I never really looked at it like, oh my god, we're Marseille have all the ball and they're so much better than us. I was more getting really upset and angry with just how sloppy we were every time we got the ball. Do you know what I mean? Like, every time we finally won it back and we were going to go hit them on the break, that first pass out wide would make it, or it would be a bit slower, and then that second pass would either be would miss the man, or like it would be a really rubbish flick or something like that, and nothing was just coming off. And it was like on another day, if we were actually on it and playing well, like I fully agree with you in the fact that they didn't really create anything of note in that first half. But we had missed opportunities where we could have scored 2 or 3. And then suddenly that's a completely different game. And everyone's looking at the scoreline at like, 2-0 at half time. And we've not really had any of the ball, but we're really comfortable. And then we probably go out the second half and manage the game. Do you know what I mean? And then like, that's maybe when we step up the possession base and they don't really have a sniff. And I think, that's what's griping me more about in terms of like the way like about the way we were playing is that we have the games that I've been watching, we've been quite sloppy in certain aspects, and I think as soon as we start tightening that up and then we hit teams and we're hitting them like on 2 or 3 breaks, 4 breaks, and we might score 2 goals or whatever because we're clinical like we were last season. Then I think everything will change. Do you know what I mean? And everyone will be suddenly a lot more upbeat about us.
I think the thing that's interesting, right, is because we've never really seen Spurs in this position before. We flirted with it for a little bit under the peak of Pochettino, right? We had sort of Leicester year and then 16-17 the year afterwards of being a title challenge, a legitimate title challenging team. And we looked. It's hard to remember really kind of because those sort of things are such an emotional journey. And I was talking about this on the pod the other day that it's sometimes hard when you're in this as a football fan, an emotional fan primarily of what's taking place on the pitch. I do find it very hard to sort of pay full attention to all the kind of like, I guess, the more tactical, technical stipulations and things that are going on at that point in time. You're sort of more living in the moment. And so it's hard to know kind of really what Spurs are doing, how effective it is. Like you're saying, we're being sloppy, perhaps in our approach play. There was a lot of kind of, like you say, slack passes and things like that put about. But one of the main things I'm noticing is that like we haven't been, barring maybe one or two little things which have been punished. Mitrovic, Romero's kind of sloppy tackle on him, which got punished, and another sloppy tackle from Romero actually in the Marseille game, which Royale managed to cover for him well on. We're not actually being that sloppy, and also God, Hugo Lloris's punch as well in that Marseille game. But other than those really glaring examples of us being sloppy in defence, I think it's quite natural that teams make little mistakes. I think the thing that really does strike me about this Tottenham team is seeing us just, like you say, just be really clinical and ultimately get the job done. Because I do wonder if we were watching, say, City over the past few years, or Liverpool, or even United back in the day, or anything like that, with the razor sharp focus that we do our own team, would we notice kind of little errors? Would we notice things that we weren't as particularly happy with? But all we see from the outside, all I've seen for the past few years is, well, it's just they just get the job done. They just win it. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. They're not going to be bemoaning. And a prime example of this is games that we've played against Liverpool. Most of the games we've played against Liverpool over the past years, we've bemoaned and we've been like, oh, for fuck's sake, like, we played so well today. We were all over them for large parts of the game. We at least deserve a point, or we should have won that one. We were all over Liverpool, but Liverpool still just managed to get it over the line. And that to me has been like half, if not like 2/3 of the battle with Spurs ad infinitum. Forever, since forever, has always been Spurs' just getting it over the line. That's what we've never seemed to be able to do. We've had periods, even when we've been way worse. Think about, not even, I don't even want to use the term worse, but not on the same level that we're at now. Martin Jol, we played some lovely football under Martin Jol. Harry Redknapp, we played some beautiful football. But the problem that always seemed to be is we always just would come unstuck. It's all well and good to remember in the Harry Redknapp era, the Inter Milans, the AC Milan away, those type of fixtures where we're flying and it looks amazing. City away at the Etihad to seal Champions League the first year, But really, we all remember that era, right? The Redknapp era of just those frustrating kind of losses or draws that we'd always fall to teams that we had no business drawing or losing to. But now we're managing to get it over the line. And I really felt watching that Champions League game the other night, like, it felt like the shoe was on the other foot. Again, it felt like, because I have felt this way for a couple of years now, is that Spurs really are now, like, we are a seasoned European team. We're one of the bigger teams, and we shouldn't be kind of constantly looking at these games, like going into games like Marseille. And I get why we do, because we're Spurs fans, and we've come from a place of when we first started getting into Europe regularly under the likes of Martin Jol. If we ran into a team like Marseille, a Sevilla, Sevilla would probably still cause a problem for us or two, but
like the 16-17 Champions League group, like that.
Exactly, but we're still going to look at teams like this and be like, ooh, I don't fancy that one. But in reality, we're a team that consistently finishes in the top 4 in the Premier League. Like we're almost every other week playing a team of real, genuine quality. I think a lot of teams in the Premier League would win most European leagues. Do you know what I mean? Like, they are... It's pretty mad. And the fact that Spurs are kind of... We can weather a storm against a team like Marseille, who are sitting top or second of Ligue 1, undefeated themselves this year, but ultimately just get the job done. Have some, like our new £60 million signing that we've made this summer, Richarlison, can just step up and make the difference.
That was lovely, wasn't it?
Unbelievable. I mean, let's talk about Richarlison, because I don't want to keep going in circles on this. Because a lot of this, like I say, I think I really do feel that this era is going to be something that we can only reflect on right now, because I don't think any of us really know the limit to this Tottenham team, the peak, where it may lie. Because I think there's a hopeful longing that we're gonna really do one of the big ones, and I think a lot of people are kind of very cautiously optimistic about the fact that Spurs might be a really good team, and it's a funny one because a lot of my mates who support kind of rival teams as well, they're not doing the usual Spurs. No, you're hyping yourselves up. You're typical kind of Tottenham. A lot of them are a bit like, I don't really know how good or not you are. Like Conte's exceptional. You got a peak Harry Kane. You got some really good players. Like you could be legit. You know, you could be the real deal. But I don't think that anybody really gets where we are. But anyway, one of the big things we can reflect on and talk about at the moment is Richarlison. Because I was very much like I was pumped when we signed him. I thought, great.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah,
absolutely.
£60 million. We're signing the best player from a club that's kind of below us. We're following that model of we're doing to Everton what United, City, whoever have done to us for years. Kyle Walker, Dimitar Berbatov, Michael Carrick, Sol Campbell. Yeah, dare we say, but the list goes on. You know. And we've done that. We've got the business done. Yeah, you know, I listen to the sort of, not frustrations, but the concerns of other Spurs fans. Where is he going to play? You know, I get it. People talk about rotation, but he's going to want to play a lot. Is he better than Kulusevski or Son or Kane? Yeah, where does he fit in this system? Is Conte going to fall out with him? And all these kind of concerns. But it seems almost a bit of a, because I would say, like, at first, immediately, I loved his endeavour. I loved his spirit. A lot of Everton fans said, you're going to love that. You're going to love his drive. You're going to love his determination. He'll bleed for the shirt, all that type of thing. That's great. And I always thought he was a good player at Everton, but I saw him more as somebody that was like, not a shithouse, but just a player that was a real hard worker and really, you know, he helped keep Everton up last year. And there was no real need for him to do that. He was going to get a move to another club. If Everton went down, anybody was going to buy him this summer. You know, probably Atletico Madrid or Manchester United or something. I think he could be fairly he could rest safely sound knowing that he was going to get a transfer this summer if Everton went down. But he was there. He was fighting for them. He's fighting for every single ball. But I think the main thing I'm noticing so far for him, other than those things, is he's actually quality. And I think a lot of people have really not even undersold him. I don't even think it's like some part of it, like a conspiracy against him or anything. I just think it's that maybe he hasn't had the platform to fully show that so far. And now he's playing alongside players of genuine quality. I'm suddenly like, have we actually signed like a superstar? Do you know what I mean? Like this guy's like Brazil's. Absolutely. He's Brazil's number 9, and the way he sort of just his influence on the game, and the way he doesn't seem to be intimidated at all. The way he's already linking up with players like Harry Kane. I'm already sort of thinking in the back of my mind. I'm like, fuck, is this the lad that Real Madrid are going to try and buy for like 120 million a year or so?
Is this guy the real deal? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those two headers, they're absolute bullets, and like and those balls going out wide, he just seems to know where to position himself properly, and then bang, wallop in the back of the net. Cheers. He's great. I love it. I've fallen in love with him like pretty. I was excited when we signed him. And because I just thought, we're signing genuine competition, you know, behaving like a big club, I think I said last time. And now he's just sort of like, now I'm actually watching him like week in, week out play. That sort of, you know, that tenacity brings, you know, to the front line, and like just how skillful, like that assist for Kane's goal, like Forest, was everything that told you everything about him as a player. Like, you know, he bullies that defender off of the ball when it's going out for a throw in, gets it, looks as it has a look up, outside of the right foot, like out swinging cross, bent perfectly for Kane at the back post. Like that was so good. And like then him to finally get his goals, if it wasn't for VAR, he would already be off the mark in the league. And he can score poachers goals. He can score fantastic headers off the end of crosses. He can create. I think we have genuinely signed the real deal. I think we've got a really good, we've got 4 fantastic options now. And like, and the best thing is he can play across all three spaces as well up front. He can be let Harry Kane have a little rest now and again. If and do you know what? That was one of the, circling back to the City game. That was one of the big conversations, right? Was it going to be Son or Richarlison playing that week on the weekend? Like, just because of how in form he is, and I think when you mention that, like, what big clubs used to do to us, you're absolutely bang on, because like you used to see teams with like or teams like lower league teams or lower in the league teams, sorry, and their best player go to like a Man United or something like that. Maybe like even I don't want to liken him to a Louis Saha, but Louis Saha was the first person that's just come to my mind, right? And everyone's like, oh well, why have they signed him? They've already got X and Y. They've paid a lot of money for him, but they just come in, and because they're playing with a much better squad and much better players, their game elevates to another level. And then they look even better, and their numbers go up and look even like and yeah, you're right. And maybe that is us now. We are one of the so-called big six, right? We're playing in Europe year after year after year. And circling back a little bit to sort of Tottenham, actually, on that front, that's just popped to my mind. Like there's a guy at work who, like, a few people at work who are sort of like loosely into football but not really into football. They know I'm a big Spurs fan, so whenever they see me, they grab me straight away and they want to talk about Tottenham, right? And one of them's a Pompey fan, Portsmouth fan, and he was like, oh, so how's Tottenham doing this season? I see you've got off to a good start. You're winning some games. Spent a lot of money on a player, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, all good. And but I was like, yeah, the only thing is we're not exactly playing really well at the moment. And from the non-football fact, he just went, that's a great sign. That's brilliant. That's what Man United used to do for years, and Chelsea. Like, they're like, oh, they just wouldn't play very well, and then they'd win. And also Rooney would pop up and score a goal, and that's what Rishi lad, as everyone's called him, right? He didn't play well. Bring on Rishi lad, he started this game, and then bang, we've got a goal and we've won the game. So fantastic piece of work, fantastic signing, and I think Conte loves him. I think when he's spoken about him, he's been like, he brings everything that he looks for in a player. So. Fantastic piece of business. Yeah. And by all accounts, like a bit of a nutcase, but a really sound lad in the dressing room, from what I've read and what I've seen.
Everything I've sort of heard about him since is that he's a bit of a like Brazilian Marcus Rashford. That he's got a real kind of heart about him. There was a story, I think, in The Athletic when we first signed him that was saying that his local team that he played for when he was a kid, and he first got kind of picked up by a bigger team. He got given like a load of kind of Nike training wear and all this stuff to wear. And he just went back to his old team and like handed all this like new kind of kit, all these shorts and shirts and socks and stuff like that out to all his old teammates, just kind of knowing that, I guess, that he's going to have a life of getting this type of stuff. And it seems to have just gone on from there, that he's somebody that's often kind of known to do a lot for charity, to do a lot for like young people and stuff in Brazil from kind of more impoverished areas. And that's why I think, I know I think people get a bit too upset about the whole like celebration police. It's quite fun, it's quite fun for when, I get it when Arsenal make fun of us for celebrating a 96th minute equaliser at Chelsea, and we do the same to them. It's just what football fans do. It's kind of we don't need to go too deep on it. But I think it becomes a bit mean-spirited, and I think it's just a bit stupid and reductive when people were kind of being like Richarlison acting after that Champions League game like he just won the competition and stuff. It's like, I mean, his dad's there.
It's a huge moment for him.
I think it's, as people said, like, him and his dad used to sell fruit at the side of the road in Brazil together, and now he's there in, let's be honest, the best stadium in the biggest competition in front of the world's media there. Those photos, you see those photos of him in the stadium now. You see him in the all white kit that we wear in Europe with the kind of lens, like, all the flashes from the photographs and everything like that going off around him. It's like an iconic shot already. You know, the sort of mud, the sort of the dirt on the shirt and all that type of stuff. The tears in his eyes. It's like it's amazing. Like, what the fuck do we watch football if you're not allowed to care about stuff? Especially the players. Like the players, they work their asses off. The majority of them, anyway. Some of them have got a God-given talent. Obviously, well, they all do. They all have a God-given talent, but some of them work harder than others, right? Of course, they can enjoy those moments. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, you're looking at this is the pinnacle of club football. This is like, other than obviously the World Cup, like, you know, for the national team, obviously that will be top of the game. Like, you know, representing your country at the World Cup, like that probably nothing will beat that. But then club level, this is it. This is the top. This is the top of your profession, and to come from where he's come from, and then be signed by a massive club for £60 million, and in your very first game in that competition that you've probably watched as a kid, and then score the 2 winning goals and get man of the match. Like, Christ, I'd break down. I'd be gone. Like, my wife ridicules me all the time, saying I never cry at anything. I think the only thing I've ever really cried at was Paddington 2. Don't know why. Just did. But like, you know, I think if I represented Spurs in the Champions League and scored 2 goals in the last 15 minutes, I'm welling up now thinking about it. No, it would be unbelievable, right? I mean, like, and then on to that point. I mean, it shows you how much it means to the players. Like, I think didn't Basuma played like 5 minutes, didn't he, or something like that? And like, that. Yeah, and he's Insta storying his Champions League shirt, you know, saying like he's made it in that competition. He's finally played in that competition. It's a huge deal for the players. That's why we've been able to, I guess, sign these sorts of players, your Basumas and your Richarlisons, because we're playing in this competition, as well as being the mighty Tottenham, of course. But yeah, like, I know, to ridicule someone for scoring in the Champions League, 2 goals, man of the match performance, and just for crying with his father on the side of the pitch when you're playing on a Thursday evening in some tin pot competition, like, it's a bit like, you know, come on.
Well, the funny thing is, the ironic thing is, their young Brazilian lad actually scored a last-minute winner as well and burst into tears. You know, and that was only in the Europa League. So bore off.
That's acceptable. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine on a Thursday night in wherever it was. Where was it? Norway or something like that? Was it? Oh no, Switzerland, wasn't it? It was Xhaka returning to home or something.
All the same, mate. Somewhere foreign. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, arse end of nowhere in the farmers' competition. Yeah. Does Mickey Mouse hand over the trophy? Does he?
Old McDonald.
Old McDonald. I actually saw one of the group games at the farm I visited this weekend, actually. Yeah, it was,
Did you? Yeah. FC Pig.
Exactly.
Are you excited? Champions League, right? It's back again this week. We haven't had any Premier League, so we're all. I know I am. I'm hungry. Speaking of pigs, I'm hungry for football again. I want to delve my face into the trough of football once again. And what better place to do that in the Champions League? Sporting Lisbon, Sporting Club de Portugal, as you're supposed to call them.
I can't tell you how jealous I am of everyone that's probably flying out there today.
It's pissing it down at the moment, if that helps.
Is it?
Yeah, I've seen quite a few
unlucky.
Spurs lot. Yeah. No, it'd be pretty amazing. I really, annoyingly, I really wanted to go to this, but it was just a bit too early in the season.
Yeah, same. I think if this would have been, same. If this would have been October, November, would have been nice. Would have been a nice time to do it, wouldn't it? But the first one up is I wouldn't fancy Marseille away. Don't know why. I can't think of anything other than
it's a bit
fans.
Bit naughty.
Joe Barton turning up with in his Ultras uniform or something like that, you know, trying to stab me in the arse or something. And I think Frankfurt would be pretty good, but Lisbon for some when the groups were drawn, I thought that would be a really nice away day. I think,
that'd be unbelievable. They're in terms of on the pitch, they're not doing that well at the moment.
They've got one of our own, haven't they?
Yeah, they got Marcus Edwards in there. I think he scored a goal the other day in the Champions League. So
goal and assist, I believe. I was I remember on one of the Spurs WhatsApp groups I'm in, I was like, I remember that there's a guy in the WhatsApp group that basically like anyone that's like youth player he thinks is going to be the next Harry Kane. He goes all in on them, whoever they are. Like Cameron Carter Vickers, he was devastated when that finally didn't happen. And and I've always been like, look, if they'll make it, they'll make it. You know, I really want them to, but at some point, you know, you cut your ties with them because they can't cut the mustard. And unfortunately, I was a bit like that with him. And then this week, that guy is like reminded me straight away. Oh, Edwards. Goal and assist. He's gonna. We've got to watch out for it. And it's almost like he kind of wants Marcus Edwards to probably score a brace against us tomorrow night because he's supported him that much. So yeah. So they're not doing that well. Then
your mate isn't windy, is it, Carl?
No. Wants to be. Breezy. We'll call him Breezy.
Breezy. All right, there you go. Yeah. He's, but yeah, I mean, they've not been doing particularly well this year. Sporting. They've lost 2 games already. They're sort of sitting mid-table.
Dyer's going to be up for it. Eric.
Yeah, that would be a nice homecoming for him, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a sort of, it's echoing what we were talking about at the top. It's a sort of team now we should be winning. We should be winning this game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they did win their first group game, right? Obviously against Frankfurt, but then Frankfurt aren't Frankfurt of what they were last season, right? So I'm not sure how much we can read into that. I think we've played our toughest team in the group already, so I'm fully expecting or wanting us to go in and do the job there, do the business, especially with a week's training now. This is what Conte is all about, right? They're always saying, or like stuff I'm hearing and reading is like, you know, Conte really only likes it when he's got a full week's worth of training. You know, that's why he never does well in Europe, because he prioritizes the league. And we never do, and his teams, even though he has made Europa League finals before, they never really do very well in Europe because he prioritises the league, and the league is his bread and butter. Well, he's now had a full week's worth of training, so I'm kind of expecting us to go there, surrender possession for 60 minutes and win and win 2-0. Yeah, absolutely. And Son to come back into form. I think he's going to again as well. I think he's just going to keep playing him and he'll score. And then when he scores, he's back. And I keep circling back to our performance levels, but do you think he's a lot to do with why we're playing bad, Son? And because the way he's playing is affecting us as a team as well.
Well, you can see that the front three and when we are going forwards, I don't think there's that synchronicity there, is there? It doesn't look that
breaks
clean.
Down.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't look that clean. It doesn't look that kind of well organised, and it seems to be perhaps that we're just getting it over the line by virtue of the sheer quality that we have in those positions. But I mean, he was good against Fulham. He was impactful against Fulham, and lest we forget that it's because of him that Marseille ended up getting a red card the other night. Which,
yeah, absolutely.
Even if it was the only thing he did really in the game, which feels harsh to say, but I thought Marseille was maybe one of his worst games of the season.
Yeah,
and it did make me worry. I agree with you. I do think Conte is just going to play through it with him. He's going to keep playing him. But I'm getting to the point where I would be tempted to kind of take him out of the side for a bit and let him kind of get his head straight, because I mean, Kulusevski, when he came on again the other day against Marseille, showed you what we've been missing.
He looks so good.
Those little whipped crosses that he does from deep. He's
so good at that. Yeah, like, driving down the right hand side, checking back onto his left, whip. Like straight away in my mind, the penalty against Arsenal, and I think Sessegnon's opening goal against Southampton this season, both from that sort of move that he likes doing. And it just looks unstoppable. Do you know what I mean? When he does that,
yeah.
He can go through, he can have little cold spells in games where he doesn't really get involved, but by and large, wow, what a player, and how big and already massive for us. So yeah, I agree with you. I kind of feel like he does he does need a little time out of the spotlight, maybe, especially when Richarlison's playing so well as well. Yeah, I can't help but feel that Conte's just going to get him and just keep playing him until he scores, and then I think in the hope that he's just going to snap out of it. I reckon.
I'm not entirely sure how good or not Harry Kane's been this season, but he's starting. He's scored basically, even if he's having an indifferent start to the season, as we know he often does. He's at least scoring goals this year.
Yeah.
There's been a bit of talk today I've seen just before we started recording. I think it's the Evening Standard are saying that he's warming to the idea of signing a contract. We saw Antonio Conte last night saying that he is. It's believed that he is committed to Tottenham. He loves the stadium. He loves the facilities. He loves the vision of the club, what they want to achieve, the fact they want to become one of a major force in European football. Blah blah blah. He's happy with the direction of travel of the spending, that type of thing. Heart of hearts, do you see, regardless of that, do you see Harry Kane signing a new contract at Tottenham?
I see Harry Kane signing a new contract if Conte signs a new contract. I think they're linked. I think it's one. I think it's a 2 for 1. If I'm putting myself in, if I would take away all love that I have for Spurs and put myself in a professional footballer's boots that is in his situation, what's he got? He's now got less than 2 years to run on his deal, if I'm right in saying.
Correct, yeah.
So he's in a position now where he can sort of wait and see. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Conte commits and Spurs are playing really, really well, I think he will commit. He's got now, but he can easily play it out this whole season, and also look at things like, where the Spurs finish up at the end of the year, if they're back in the Champions League and Conte's still manager, all rosy, new 4-year deal, finish off the career. He probably could also look at something like, see where Tottenham are at the end of the year, and let's see where someone like Man United are at the end of the year, and how they're getting on, and the fact that they probably will need a number 9, because obviously Ronaldo is not the answer for them. Not to say that Kane is with the way they're playing, but it's Harry Kane, right? He can fit in anywhere and score goals. It's going to be a bit of touch and go and wait and see, I think, with him, because if we're flying and we're doing well, let's say we finish third this season, or we look like we're going to finish third, and Conte's loving it, and Conte's getting backed next summer as well, then I can fully see him committing and signing on. But if things don't quite go to plan this season, maybe we fit it. Let's say, horror scenario, we finish 5th, and the and there's no injection next season or whatever, or club's starting to get a bit thrifty, then I can sort of see a world where he sits and waits another season and kind of does what Eriksen did to us. But I'm positive. I want to be positive about it, and I think we've been talking about how much of the real deal we are, and how we're acting like a big club now, and how even though performances haven't been great, we've still been clinical, and we're finishing off teams. And I kind of feel like we're gonna be all right this season. I do feel like we're gonna be all right this season, and then I think we go again, and I think I'm leaning towards him ending up signing a new deal. Tied with Conte, the 2 for 1.
Let's hope you're right, mate. Let's hope you're right. How far do you think Spurs can go in the Champions League, mate? Do you buy the kind of Conte doesn't do well in Europe stuff, or do you think it's a new leaf for him as well?
No, I think we'll go. I feel like easily we're going to go through the group, not a problem. And then it's luck of the draw, isn't it? After that, do you know what I mean? Like, who knows? We could go full 2019 and make it all the way, we could easily draw like the best team in the competition do you know what I mean? It's so hard to tell. I'll go as far as saying like and sticking my neck out and being like, yeah, we'll finish top of the group. I really do feel like we're the best team in that group, and we'll finish that. From there, like you just see, like, yes, I do feel like we are one of the better teams in Europe. I do feel like we are like one of the strongest teams in Europe now. But you just never know with Champions League. It's so batshit crazy, and then you get you get someone like Atletico Madrid who I watch and I'm never really convinced about them, but then they shit out their ways over two legs and they knock out someone like Liverpool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And kind of like what we did to City, I suppose, in 2010. And we didn't really shit out them, but so like you can never tell. It's just luck of the draw and how it goes over on night and 2 nights, and then you hope bit of luck goes your way or a bit of VAR goes your way, and then you're through. I do feel like we could go. We have the potential to go deep. That's for sure. It's just about keeping everybody fit, and this World Cup is another, like, having that slap bang in the middle of the season. That is another sort of like conundrum that everyone's got to figure out, and how players come back from that whole tournament. A lot on the plate of Conte, a lot on the plate, and it has to be. I think it has to be, like you say. Is it a new Conte? I think it has to be, doesn't it? Just with the amount of time, the amount of fixtures, and everything going on, it has to be a new Conte to be able to deal with all of this. No,
an interesting little conundrum for you, mate. If we get towards the end of the season, right, it looks like we're in the position kind of to be in a title race. We're maybe, say, a couple of points off City at the top. We're doing really well. And we're in a Champions League semi-final. What do you want to see us prioritise? Where do you want... We have a big squad now. We've got a lot of players. But if you were talking like our best 11, at that point, and you know what it is, do you want to see us try and win the Champions League, or do you want to see us sort of go big in the Premier League?
Champions League.
Yeah, good man.
Oh, it's the pinnacle.
It is, isn't it? Right? You gotta. Winning the league's great, but winning Champions League in front of the eyes of the world, in front of Europe, is.
Yeah, and going around singing away every club you go to next season, singing Champions of Europe. You'll never sing
especially
that pretty much.
Emirates. Imagine it,
exactly.
Especially to Arsenal. Imagine it. Beautiful.
I'd be all up for a star on the shirt as well.
Big time. Come on. Yeah. Exactly. Big time.
Get it on there now.
Do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Champions League all day, every day.
It's lucky we don't have to choose, mate, as we're going to win the lot this year. So
the quad,
all of
done.
It. Have you seen that? Have you seen the meme doing the rounds? There's that bit in Harry Potter when, I don't know, they're sat on the train basically, and the woman comes around with the refreshments trolley and says, "Do you want anything from the trolley, love?" And Ron says, "We'll have the lot." But someone's obviously put Conte's face on the on Ron, and on the trolley there's just all the different cups that Spurs might win this year. I'm not even doing the internet thing of who made this, scream kind of thing. I actually want to know who made that meme, because it's brilliant. And it's given me...
send that.
It's such a source of mirth so far. Hang on, let me see. Let me find it for you now.
Please send that to me, because I will send that to everyone I know.
Mate, it's absolutely amazing. But yeah, I think there's plenty of reason. We've just whilst we've been recording, as us having a look now, it seems to be that the games this weekend are going to go ahead. Surprisingly, I thought they'd be off as well this weekend.
Well, for one reason or another, we've got season tickets, and I've still been in this season. It's like there's always been something that's happened, or like an event or something that I've got to go to, and this Saturday was meant to be. This is going to be the first time I'm finally getting up there again, and then when obviously everything was happening. And then I was reading about, next week might be off as well. And I was like, fuck, I'm never going to go.
It's never again. But maybe that's why we're doing well, Carl. Maybe you're a bad luck charm, mate.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe stop going.
To catch it in. That's it. Well, we'll find out this weekend. This is the litmus test, right? So if we do lose, if we lose at home to Leicester, first of all, fucking hell, we've lost at home to Leicester. But like, yeah, if we do lose, then I'll be the ticket exchange every weekend, I think.